All right, guys. So, welcome back. Wanted to get the next video going for this series, where we are starting fresh install, fresh game, fresh account, fresh everything. Gonna try and do a guidance through the game to teach people that are new to the game or those that are coming back after a long time away. And in our last video, we were going over um, the different classes. We wanted to maintain flexibility throughout the game, especially at end game when we get to the higher levels. So you're not having to play every single class out there before you realize what role it is that you like to play, whether it be tank, healing, or DPS. So our choices were, druid, monk, and paladin, and we kind of decided that Paladin is the way to go. What we want to focus on now is race selection. And this is one of those things that a lot of people think has a lot of um, stuff to it that is important to gameplay. Let's just put it that way. Um, that in order to be the best paladin, you have to pick a Tauren. And that's just not true. There are things that are going to benefit you in one way, and all the races are very well balanced when it comes to which one you select and how it helps you in the long run. When it comes to DPSing, you might decide to go with one race. If you decide to be a tank, you might want to go with a different race. As an example, the Tauren, they have increased stamina. That means that at the later levels, you're going to have higher hit points than a human paladin. But the thing is humans have things that balance that out. They have increased haste, critical strike, mastery, and versatility. So things like that, they balance each other out. And if you notice, like almost all of them have some of these abilities that are going to balance out with the other racial abilities. Like Orc has Enrage to increase damage. But then you look at Troll and they have Berserk to increase casting and attacking speed. I mean, they're very well balanced. And when you look at the statistics that are on some of the websites, what you'll realize is that the top and the bottom, the difference between those twos in any class you decide to pick, you can look at the top race and the bottom race, and the difference between them is like 3%. So really, the biggest thing is to go for what you like. The aesthetic is a big thing. I love the Tauren. I've always been a big Tauren guy. Um, but when it comes to minimizing and maximizing, I am going to go ahead and take a look at some of this stuff. And we're going to take a look just real quick. I'm going to hover over a Pandaren real quick because they can't be paladins. The reason I'm doing that is so that I can hover over paladins and show you what races can be paladins. On Horde side, you have Blood Elf and Tauren. Yeah, on Alliance side, you have Human, Dwarf, and Draenei. Those are the only races we're going to be looking at. Now, I'm going to keep it on. Uh, uh, let's see. I'm going to take it to Tauren first. Actually, let's start with the Blood Elves. All right, so they have Enchanting Skill increased. Okay. Restore resources like mana or energy. Okay. Dispel nearby enemies and resistance to arcane damage. Okay, these all sound like cool traits. Let's go to the next one. Tauren. They have Stomp, stunning nearby opponents. Increased stamina. Herbalism skill and speed increased. Resistance to nature damage. Increased effect from critical strikes. Okay, so like if you're thinking of the role of tanking, increased stamina, resistant to damage, and you get an increased effect from critical strike. Those all sound like things that would be good for a tank. or even a DPS. Stamina helps keep you alive, but that increased effect from critical strikes, your critical strikes do more damage. But then when you look at Blood Elf, it doesn't seem like they've got anything like that. Well, look, they've got resistance to arcane damage. That balances out with the resistance to nature damage. But what does a blood elf bring that the Tauren doesn't? Well, they've also got that enchanting skill increase. Well, Tauren has the herbalism skill increased, so that balances that one out. So now we're looking at what? War Stomp, increased stamina, okay, so they have restore resources like mana or energy, or dispel nearby enemies. Okay, so Blood Elves have this thing called Arcane Torrent, that when you use it, it will give you back some mana. As a paladin, it gives you back some mana. Great. So it's like a little mana potion. Okay, that's cool. Tauren. Theirs that would be comparable would be Stomp. It stuns nearby opponents. Does have a very fast cast timer, but it is a cast timer. And like I said, it is very fast. If you're quick on your toes, you can use it to interrupt the spell casting of an enemy. Or you can use it to stun an enemy real fast and run away if you need to try to survive. Um, for the Blood Elf, that arcane torrent not only gives you back mana, so it's not just a mana potion, it also dispels nearby enemies. So if they've got some kind of effect on them that you need to get rid of, that's a way to get rid of it. So it's like I said, the races are actually really well balanced. They just kind of have some flavor to them, you know. So what it comes down to is personal preference. But the thing is we get over here to Draenei. You see jewel crafting skill increase. Look at that. It's another profession thing. Okay, you have to heal yourself or others over time. Okay, well, that kind of balances out with the War Stomp and the Arcane Torrent. They have a heal that they can do on themselves. That sounds awesome, right? They have increased agility, intellect, and strength. Okay, that's just like the increased stamina that Tauren get, right? So, I mean, again, resistance to shadow damage, resistance to nature damage balances out. Okay, so we need to look at what the others have. Human, increased haste, crit, mastery, versatility, bonus to Hearthstone efficacy. I don't even know what that is at this point. I haven't even thought about. I mean, what does that do for you? Does it lower the timer on how often you can use your Hearthstone? That might help if you're the type of person that hearths a lot, but really, if you're in a guild, your Hearthstone timer is already pretty stinking short. I think it's like 15 minutes right now. One of the things that's really good is they have this breakout of stun effects. That's pretty good. Okay, that's like on the level of the War Stomp, where you could use that to interrupt enemies. Dispelling a nearby enemy, that can find some pretty good uses, but I'd say the War Stomp is, I'd say that's a little more useful than being able to dispel something. For one thing, you've got to know whether or not it's dispellable. Then it has to be an enemy that actually does something that you should dispel rather than just kill it. Um, War Stomp is an interrupt as well as a stun. So if something's casting a spell, it's an AoE just silence. Well, it doesn't silence, it just stuns them for that split second, and then they go back to casting again. But that could be just enough time for somebody else to come in and do their AoE stun or something like that. So, we're looking at humans, theirs that is comparable is that break out of stun effects. That is very powerful, especially in PvP. Man, that is a good one. Breaking out of stun effects. What if I'm fighting a Tauren and he uses War Stomp on me and I'm stunned right in the middle of needing to do something? I can break out of that stun. Now, granted, I'm using that as an example. War Stomp only stuns you for like a second, I think. So it's not that long a stun, but there are other stuns that you could break out of as a human, and not just in PvP. We're talking about in raids and Mythic Plus dungeons and things like that as well. It is very useful to have a break out of stun effects. In fact, the gnome has one that is similar, which is escape from speed altering effects. That's like if you get rooted, you can escape from that. That's pretty powerful. Too bad we can't have a gnome paladin, huh? Anyway, let's look at the last one. We've got dwarf. Um, they may take on a stone form, and they have increased effect from critical strikes, resistant to frost damage, and they find more archaeology fragments and survey faster. Okay, that's kind of cool. Archaeology, whatever. Most people don't even mess with archaeology, but again, it goes along with the other profession building stuff that some of these others have. What's some of the other ones? Increased engineering or the Draenei jewel crafting increase. Okay, sure. So we've got a profession increase. We have a resistance ability. We have increased effect from critical strikes. That looks just like the Tauren. Increased effect from critical strikes, so our critical strikes hit harder. So now we're looking at this. Well, it doesn't look like they have anything that increases any of their stats like the Tauren does, but they've got this thing called may take on a stone form. Stone form is a game changer. That is one of those abilities that it's one of those things people will ask you, why did you choose a dwarf? I'm sorry, why did you choose a Tauren over a dwarf? Dwarves have stone form. I don't know how many times I've heard people say that they only play Alliance because that's the only way to get stone form. They love playing Horde, but stone form is just so game breakingly powerful. So what does stone form do? Well, let's look it up on Wowhead real quick, and well, I'll tell you. I'll read it out to you. I'm not going to share the screen that way. I'm not going to mess around with it just for this. Um, well, let's look up stone form. If we can get Wowhead to come up. You know what? Let's just ask ChatGPT real quick to give us a summary. What is the dwarven racial stone form, and what does it do? So ChatGPT's response says that the dwarven racial ability Stoneform is a racial trait available to playable dwarves in World of Warcraft. Here's what it does. It removes all poison, disease, curse, magic, and bleed effects. That's 5 different effects that it can just completely remove. And if you have all 5 of those on you, it removes all 5. All right, if you have some crazy debuff that's on you that this boss hits you with and it stacks up to 20 and you die, and so you have to do this tank swap at 18 because the timer, for it to fall off is just enough time that the other tank gets 18 of them before you can taunt it back. It's one of those things that you could hit this and it just completely removes that. On top of that, it reduces all physical damage taken by 10% for 8 seconds. That, I mean, that by itself would make it massive. That by itself, just that physical damage taken reduction by 10% for 8 seconds is comparable to that War Stomp ability that the Torrents have. That's without the ability to remove, the debuffs. And on top of that, it's usable while stunned, feared, or incapacitated. You can use this when you're stunned to give yourself an increased ability to take damage. This is useful for DPS, healing, or tanking. And for tanking, which we kind of want this to be a focus on this guide, is to get people away from that idea of anxiety. I want to show you guys how to tank and to not be afraid of it. And with that in mind, I almost have to go with the dwarves, right? it's like there is nothing that compares to this. Right? I can't think of any reason to go with any race other than dwarf. We look at the humans, we look at the Draenei, we look at the Blood Elves, and we look at the Tauren, and nothing that any of these have compares to that. And that's a mistake by Blizzard because there's no reason that I should be looking at all of these different races and seeing all of this balance everywhere else and seeing a single ability that completely negates everything else. I love Torn. Why wouldn't I want to play a Torn instead? Because dwarves have Stoneform. I mean, it's just such a good thing. We have to go with that. So let's go with the Paladin. We're gonna go with the dwarf. Um, we got to go with our redheaded, bald, bearded dwarf Paladin. So let's customize our character. All right. Everybody knows I'm Vengeance. Let's see what we can change some of this stuff up to. You know what? I kind of like that look right off the bat. It's a random look. Let's just hit the randomizer a couple times. Let's see what we come up with. Now, we got to have our redheaded dwarf. Let's see if we can get a bald redheaded dwarf and see bald red bearded dwarf. That's close. No, 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 no. Close. No, no. Okay, that's close enough. That's pretty cool. He's got the flat top. He's got the nose ring. Yeah, we might have to go with that. That looks cool. All right. So here we go. We're jumping into the game. Like I said before, this is where your characters show up. We have now created our level 1 Dwarven Paladin. We can get rid of these because all they do is let us know that this is where all of our characters are going to be. Our first 4 are going to show up in our campsite. We have our campsites. We've got Adventurer's Rest, and we've got the Onaran Overlook. Let's check out Onaran Overlook. Okay, that looks kind of cool. Yeah, we can see our dwarf buddy down here. All right. And with that, we'll end this stream. And next one, we'll jump into the game. We'll start setting up our character to start playing. We're going to have a nice video showing how to set up your user interface and what you need to know before you actually start killing shit. Anyway, thanks for showing up. If you've made it this far, appreciate it. Subscribe, like, all that good stuff. You know what to do. Help me out, guys. Thanks a lot.